These two behemoths that own the unregulated market were at war with each other, and one put the other out of business intentionally.
In a statement released by Sam Bankman-Fried, he blames CZ and Binance for the FTX collapse. And the same did Kevin O'Leary in a recent hearing about the FTX situation. Just take a listen to what he had to say.
So let me ask you directly. You were an investor in FTX, and I know you've spoken frequently with Sam Bankman-Fried over an extended period of time. Why do you believe FTX failed?
I have an opinion. I don't have the records. Here it is. After my accounts were stripped of all of their assets and all of the accounting and trade information, I couldn't get answers from any of the executives in the firm, so I simply called Sam Bankman-Fried and said, "Where is the money, Sam?" He said he had been refused access to the servers. He no longer knew. I said, "Okay, let's step back. This is a simple case in my mind of where did the money go?" And I said, "Sam, walk me back 24 months. Tell me the use of proceeds of the assets of your company. Where did you spend it?" And then he told me about a transaction that occurred over the last 24 months, the repurchase of his shares from Binance, his competitor. I didn't know this at the time, but at some point, CZ or Binance, who runs Binance, purchased 20% ownership in Sam Bankman-Fried's firm for seed stock. And then, over time, and I asked him, what would compel you to spend $2 billion was the number he was giving me at that time. Later, in a subsequent conversation, about 24 hours later, he told me it could have been as much as $3 billion to buy back the shares from CZ. I asked him, what would compel you to do that? Why wouldn't you keep your assets on your balance sheet? And why would you offer this to just one shareholder? He said, because every time we went to get licensed in different jurisdictions, because you must understand the prize of crypto is to get regulated. For all the talk we say about Bitcoin and everything else, no institutions own this. I work for the sovereign wealth and pension plans. They don't touch this stuff because it's unregulated. Between these two, let's call them frenemies, because they obviously were potentially the two largest shareholders in the firm, they had a disagreement. They had a falling apart. Apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with the regulators' request in these different geographies, these different jurisdictions, to provide the data that would clear them for a license. He withheld it, according to Sam Bankman-Fried. The only option the management and Sam Bankman-Fried had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation of close to $32 billion, less apparently a 15% discount.
This story, that CZ was not cooperating in providing KYC information to regulators, is also being told by SBF in a testimony he planned to give to Congress. In the testimony, SBF writes that roughly $3 billion of capital was used buying Binance's stake in FTX, because Binance equity ownership was causing KYC issues for FTX. Binance was not cooperative in supplying information about CZ to regulatory bodies that FTX was applying for licensure with. Later in the testimony, SBF also writes that, in fact, I reached out to CZ in 2021 to initiate discussions about buying them out of their stake in FTX. I initiated these discussions because, among other things, it was becoming increasingly difficult for FTX to operate with CZ as a significant equity owner. CZ was not cooperative in sending his KYC information to regulators that we were applying for licenses with. CZ threatened at the last minute to walk away from the negotiated buyout unless we kicked in an extra $75 million or so. We ultimately agreed to pay the extra $75 million because we were intent on serving the relationships with CZ, something he undoubtedly surmised and used to his advantage to extort an extra $75 million from us above the agreed-on purchase price. SBF clearly insinuates that because of CZ's KYC problems, FTX was forced to buy out CZ and Binance's ownership in FTX to be able to acquire new licenses. But this was not the only allegations from SBF and Kevin O'Leary. Just listen in to what more he had to say about the situation between CZ and FTX.
That stripped the balance sheet of assets. You ask me why it went bankrupt? Go to the last week. all of a sudden, in social media, CZ is asking for another $500 million. He wants to do a block trade of FTT, or the proprietary token of FTX, wants it converted back to fiat. Why would you put that out there? You know it's going to push down the pressure, it's going to push down the value of that coin dramatically, and that's exactly what happened. Every trader knows that if you have a large block trade, you go negotiate a clearing price with other buyers and you do the transaction.
The tweets that Kevin O'Leary is referring to are the tweets that CZ posted on November the 6th and November the 7th. On November the 6th, CZ tweeted that as a part of Binance's exit from FTX equity last year, Binance received roughly 2.1 billion USD equivalent in cash, BUSD and FTT. Due to recent revelations that have come to light, we have decided to liquidate any remaining FTT on our books. We will try to do so in a way that minimizes market impact. Due to market conditions and limited liquidity, we expect this will take a few months to complete. Binance always encourages collaboration between industry players. Regarding any speculation as to whether this is a move against a competitor, it's not. Our industry is in a nascency, and every time a project publicly fails, it hurts every user and every platform. We typically hold tokens for the long term, and we have held on to this token for this long. We stay transparent with our actions. And on November the 7th, CZ tweeted that I was out with friends yesterday when the topic of whale alerts came up. Following our principles, I decided to be transparent. So I wrote a thread in 5 minutes and posted it. Little did I know it was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. Everyone wants more transparency in our industry, right? My tweets were simple. There were questions about a large $580 million FTT deposit to Binance, and we were transparent about the fact that we were closing our FTT position. The fact that it sparked such levels of discussions was surprising. There were also conspiracy theories that I somehow orchestrated the whole thing. Funny memes, media, and some people tried to color this as a fight. Sorry to disappoint, but I spend my energy building, not fighting. Today, I spent my day on our business and our community. I suggest others do the same. Back to building. These tweets were also mentioned in SBF's testimony. There were roughly $4 billion of client withdrawals per day, starting shortly after CZ tweeted on November the 6th that it would sell all of its company's holdings in FTT, a token that Alameda Research had substantial holdings in. Alameda's assets fell precipitously in value beginning on November the 6th, hours after CZ tweeted his intent to sell his holdings in FTT. The run on the bank was triggered by the same tweet by Binance's CEO. That tweet followed what I believe to be a month of sustained negative PR on FTX, largely being driven by Binance. Alameda's hedges failed in November 2022 because the crash was specific to his hedges, triggered by the same PR campaign by CZ. Around November the 8th, we agreed with CZ on a deal that would have Binance acquire FTX at a small fraction of its value a week earlier. From this testimony, we understand that SBF believes that CZ put out these tweets on purpose to harm FTX. This is also what Kevin O'Leary believes to be the case.
In my view, my personal opinion, these two behemoths that own the unregulated market together and grew these incredible businesses in terms of growth were at war with each other. And one put the other out of business intentionally. Now, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe there's nothing wrong with love and war. But Binance is a massive, unregulated global monopoly now.
Essentially, what SBF and Kevin O'Leary is claiming is that the FTX collapse was a result of a direct and planned attack from CZ and Binance. They claim that CZ knew that Alameda Research had a substantial holding in FTT and that his tweets would cause a fall in the value of FTT so big that Alameda would not be able to deliver sufficient liquid assets if they were margin called, which then would lead to FTX being unable to meet customer withdrawal requirements, sending FTX into insolvency. In the testimony, SBF claims that CZ prevented FTX from talking to other potential investors as long as the negotiations with Binance were ongoing, by making FTX sign a letter of intent. During that time, I received serious expressions of interest from multiple potential investors who represented billions in capital that could have gone to customers. I was inhibited in responding by the LOI. A day later, Binance announced that they were not going to go through with the deal. We learned about them backing out from their Twitter post. As best I can tell, Binance never intended to go through with the deal. CZ responded to these claims by calling them conspiracy theories and that it is not possible that anyone could orchestrate this collapse. In summary, SBF and Kevin O'Leary believes that CZ crashed the FTT token on purpose to make Alameda and FTX go insolvent, then prevent them from being saved by other investors by not allowing FTX to talk to others while negotiations with Binance were ongoing. Do you think that the Alameda and FTX collapse were planned and orchestrated by CZ? Or do you think that SBF is trying to shift the focus away from his responsibilities? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about the situation. If you found this video entertaining or educational, please consider leaving a like and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our daily crypto news. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next video.